Hey everyone, today we're discussing decommissioned add-ons. Add-ons that for whatever reason were removed from the game and replaced by another. In some cases, this is due to reworks, in others, the add-on being overpowered, and in some cases, it's sort of just a mystery. I'm going to be presenting the best case I have for each. Interestingly, not many killers have had add-ons decommissioned, but the ones that do usually get them in large quantities. First up is Wraith. First up for him is the retired series of Blind Warrior add-ons. These add-ons increased light burn resistance for Wraith. At the time, this would have actually been relatively helpful. Light burn originally was a mechanic for Wraith that allowed you to shine a flashlight onto him when he was cloaked and stun him for a short duration. In its original version, light burn required just 1 second to activate, making it a huge downside to Wraith's power. This series of add-ons helped to reduce the potency of this effect. Over time, light burn got gradual buffs from 1 to 1.5 until eventually it hit 2 seconds. In this same patch, 2.2.0, these Blind Warrior add-ons were retired as a result, no longer being needed now that the effect required a 2-second activation time. The purple and brown versions of this add-on were decommissioned and replaced by Swift Hunt and the Hound, the yellow and green versions being repurposed with different effects. The iridescent version, which you may not even know existed, the Blind Warrior Spirit, would give you complete immunity to the light burn mechanic, but it too was decommissioned along with the others. Next we have All-Seeing Mud and All-Seeing White. These were the lower tier versions of the current All-Seeing Blood, a very strong add-on at the moment for Wraith. This add-on currently allows you to see nearby survivors through walls when cloaked. These add-ons I can only assume were decommissioned due to them being far too powerful. Mud, just a yellow add-on originally, had the same level of power as the current purple version. White, the green add-on, confusing I know, revealed survivors within 8 meters of you. In 2.2.0, they were honed down to just the purple, which provided a 12-meter range, later reduced to 8 meters. This was likely to make it a bit more exclusive and fitting to its power. Having that wider range of add-ons that lets you see through walls probably just isn't the most fair. Next up, I've got a very interesting story. Doctor has just one add-on that got decommissioned, or technically 2, but we gotta get through the story first. Back upon the release of Doctor, he had an add-on named Scrap Tape, a yellow add-on that would change the shape of your shocks to be circular with a gap in the middle. An odd effect and pretty bad, although somewhat fun one. On a sad day at the start of 2020 though, it got removed, decommissioned in favour of introducing iridescent add-ons to Doctor. In fairness, actually a very good change at the time. However, this didn't last long. Just a patch later in 3.6.0, Obedience Class 3 was decommissioned after the glorious return of the Scrap Tape add-on, which was removed in the prior patch. The Obedience add-on was chosen to be decommissioned more than likely due to its effect, which added an additional 2 seconds onto the snap out of it action. This is the only add-on to do this, and one that's a bit pointless. It's also the only add-on that ever existed in the Obedience category. Other add-on lines such as Calm, Discipline, and Order all have multiple add-on rarities. The Obedience category doesn't have a family, and therefore it was brutally chosen to be decommissioned. Obedience was always alone, and so sadly, it got picked. In its original version, Obedience applied the Exhausted effect onto Madness Tier 3 survivors, and so when this effect was removed, I think this sort of led the add-on to being in a very pointless spot, and so the recently decommissioned, although a bit of a meme, it was far more interesting to have the Scrap Tape, and reintroduce it in favour of Obedience Class 3. A sad story about an add-on with no family. Beirut's Toxin was a Huntress add-on removed in the Huntress Add-On Pass that saw a change to many of her outdated add-ons. This happened as a result of her add-ons having effects that worked for old mechanics, but were very overpowered with the newer ones. Beirut's Toxin was an add-on that applied a 30-second exhaustion effect onto survivors when they were hit with a hatchet. This seems high, and by today's standards, it absolutely is. However, old exhaustion used to be recoverable much faster, and was also possible to do so whilst running. Therefore, Huntress's old exhaustion applying add-ons applied it in larger quantities. This allowed for the add-ons to actually have the effect of slowing down recovery. The green version of this add-on, the Venomous Concoction, did survive being decommissioned, with it being made more appropriate to the modern day standard of exhaustion application, moving it from an applied 90 seconds of exhaustion down to just 5 seconds. UC Brew and UC Concoction were two additional add-ons removed with this add-on pass. These add-ons applied the hindered status when a survivor was injured by a hatchet. They were likely removed because they were a little busted with their alterations in movement speed. 3% is all they reduced it by, but as we know from Made for This more recently, 3% can make a pretty big difference, especially for Huntress, who's a 4.4 meters per second character. Next up, I thought we could go to the other end of add-ons, the ones that were decommissioned because they were that bad. For Huntress, this came in the form of the Pungent File. Pungent File was an odd add-on that was basically just useless. Hatchets that were inside of lockers would be permanently revealed when within 36 meters. This was removed in Huntress's add-on pass because it's an effect that is simply not needed, with them being revealed when you need them the most already, which is when you're out of hatchets. This made the existence of Pungent File pretty pointless, and so it was removed, and Huntress was given a second iridescent add-on. A pretty good trade, I think. Now onto Spirit. The Prayer Beads bracelet originally allowed Spirit to enter her phase completely silently. This meant you could be on a generator minding your own business and she would suddenly appear and grab you off of it. It later got changed to be the opposite, and so that all survivors would hear the phase sound, allowing for a similar effect, although not quite as powerful. Despite this, the add-on was eventually decommissioned. It got replaced by the Furin add-on, which sort of carried on a very similar effect to the reworked version, so I'm not sure why they decided to change it and change the icon entirely. Maybe people just had such a connection of pain to the image of that add-on that they decided, okay, we need to change the whole add-on icon entirely. I don't know, maybe something like that, I'm not sure. Another interesting one from Spirit that got changed was the Father's Glasses. Father's Glasses, I think, was likely decommissioned due to its effect just not being that great. It was also changed in the 5.3.0 add-on pass. When phase walking, it made blood pools appear much brighter. It's a semi-decent additional tracking element, but lackluster for an iridescent add-on. It was switched out for the Kintsugi teacup that nowadays recharges your power when breaking a pallet or wall. So not exactly the most interesting trade-off, but I would say still for the best. As iridescent add-ons come, this was probably one of the weaker ones. How about we have a change of pace? Something a bit more motivational. A story about an add-on that achieved its dreams. Billy in the most recent PTB received a bunch of changes to his add-ons, with a number of them being decommissioned. One of his iridescent add-ons fell to this fate, Iridescent Brick. This was hardly lost. This was replaced by the iridescent engravings and was removed likely because it was just kind of terrible, providing the undetectable status for maintaining a chainsaw sprint. Its effect was then shifted over to the new Filthy Slippers. In this 7.5.0 patch, many of his add-ons either changed in rarity, mostly dropping, or were just fully replaced. What was further tangled into this was the old Doom engravings, now decommissioned due to the release of the new iridescent engravings. However, this isn't a bad thing for the Doom engravings. Well, it's sort of a bittersweet thing, I guess. The Doom engravings got promoted, but the old version as a result had to fall to the void. The Doom engravings being considered one of Billy's best add-ons for so long, they really do deserve to be in that iridescent spot, but it's sort of sad they didn't keep their name, you know? All this time, the Doom engravings worked hard to reach the top, and then as they reach there, they get replaced by the iridescent engravings. You know, the image of the Doom engravings is still in there, but really the iridescent engravings are in the spotlight. Maybe we could see it as a father-son scenario, I don't know, even though the Doom engravings may be sitting in the decommissioned void, it looks up and sees its son, iridescent engravings, sitting happily at the top of the Billy add-on tier list and sees Ots happily talk about it. Or something like that, I don't know. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed. Thanks, and goodbye.